Hi and welcome. I'm Melisa Uchida, and I'm here with Michelle Ann Collins, who is an author and an Ayurveda practitioner and a yoga therapist. I am a yoga teacher and an energy worker and a student of life, kind of a holistic health coach, doing a bit of everything and discovering. I'm really on this quest to find out what it means to be human and how to make being a human as pleasurable and less painful as possible. So, thank you for joining us. We're here continuing our conversation on what it is to be a widow of for a suicide loss and the healing process that happens when as we're healing through our spouse's deaths. So, thank you. And today we will be talking about movement and how important it is, what kinds of movements to help release all of this trauma and tension that's stored up in our body. And Michelle and I both have been practicing yoga and teaching yoga. And Michelle, do you want to talk a little bit?
Sure, yeah. Thank you, Melissa. So the other thing that Melissa and I met in our grief educator course, and we've also both taken a course called Grief Yoga, which is a really wonderful process of learning using movement, breath, and sound to move stuck emotions through the body. And we talked in our last video about digestion. And digestion is really something that it's a process that doesn't just happen in your stomach and the digestive system. We also have to digest everything we're exposed to every day. And the fact that we are exposed to this great grief and this great trauma can really get stuck in the body. I used to have a massage therapist who, while he was working on me, would name the person that I was stressed out about, like, "Oh, that's so and so there in your shoulder," and it's true. We get as yoga teachers, Melissa and I know that hip openers, when we do a class that includes some deep hip openers like pigeon pose and figure four and things like that, they'll often be a big emotional release from the students. And I remember personally early on crying during yoga and having no idea why a release was happening. And now I know it's because we store tension in our physical bodies and it's connected to an emotion. And so when we get into a place in our physical body where it's been stuck for a long time, it might come out as a release with crying. And that is awesome. So we're here to really support the movement of grief for healing. And I want to start in a little bit more sort of beginning way. And that is when you first are working through the really acute phase of grief after losing your spouse or partner to suicide, it may not be time to go into these grief yoga movements that we're going to share with you. And we're just going to share a few with you. And we can, there's lots of videos out there that you can find, or you can contact either one of us to help you personalize a grief yoga routine. But it may be that you're curled up in bed crying, or maybe you're like me and you can move from bed to couch to sitting outside. That was about all I was capable of at the time. I even had someone walking my dog for me, dogs. And what I found was my entire body got painful. I had pain from head to toe, and it was partly because of the grief and partly because of lack of movement. And the way that I started bringing movement back into my life was one day I was downstairs making my coffee and I just did a quick stretch. I'm going to demonstrate it for you so you can understand how easy it is to bring movement, important movement into your life. This is my chair here. So say this is my kitchen counter, right? I just stretched back like this into what we yogis call a downward dog. Make sure I'm in the screen. I stretch forward with one leg. I stretch back again. By the way, on my YouTube channel, I have this as the 4-minute desk jockey stretch. I stretch like this, and then a side to side stretch. And I'm doing it really fast just for time, but I'd love you to do it very slowly and a little twist. So what I've done is I've stretched my spine in all 6 directions. I've massaged my internal organs, which can support digestion. And I've stretched my hip flexors, which get really, really tight. Those are the muscles that hold the torso to the top of the leg in the front. And just that, how long did that take? A minute, 30 seconds can really start. So you don't have to go straight to a yoga class. You can start with just a few breaths and a few moves. Do you want to add anything, Melisa?
I love that. And let's put the link to your what did you call it? Your
Oh, it's
desk.
I think it's called 4 minute desk jockey stretch. I don't remember, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and that's
basically
so
what it is.
great. Because what we really want is flexion and extension that helps to release a lot of tension that's built up in our spine. We end up, people collect tension in different places and we don't even realize it, to the jaw, the neck and shoulders, and hip flexors. So the hip flexors are really, really deep right about in here. I love things even from sitting in a chair. Take my hands round forward and inhale as you open up and expand. Exhale as you round forward. Bring the elbows together and inhale, open
If
up
you
and expand.
can.
If you can, well, yeah, they don't need to touch, but we're flexing, extending. We go from this opening our heart. So what happens too when we're in grief is we start to close off. This would be really natural. This kyphotic type of a posture. We really do put emotional layers over our heart, and physically you can see we kind of get small and want to
Mhm.
curl up into a ball. So as we start to heal and create some movement, we're slowly starting to open up our heart. Anytime we bring our shoulders back in together, think of that as opening the heart. Now, we don't want it to go from here being protective, because in grief, we need to be protective. Think of being a hurt animal, right? So we have to withdraw. We have to have some solitude. But once we start to need to get some movement to get it out there, we open up. Even the simple act of drawing your shoulders back and together. This one is
Mhm.
another one that I love. It's a technique called havening. We use this for PTSD. This is definitely used for trauma. Taking the hands, it's almost like giving yourself a really nice hug. You're just
Mhm.
brushing straight down to your elbows. And if you do that for a few minutes, just, you feel it?
Yeah, it feels good.
It does feel good. And then I like to rub too. If you can, you can give yourself a little massage right here. It doesn't have to be a lot. Physical touch is also another thing that when you've lost a spouse, when our spouses have died, we lose physical touch. And physical touch is incredibly healing. It is so powerful and it is so important. And we can give it to ourselves. We can give it to ourselves, and it's not the same, I know, but put your arms around yourself. You give yourself a big hug, and you can even, I close my eyes, and sometimes I can feel Nate. So I would do this. I tip my head to the side, and it's like I could feel that my cheek was up against his chest. And it's this
Mm.
nurturing, loving, supportive, connected feeling. So it doesn't have to be big movement in order to bring healing and to start to release things. Once you start walking outside, amazing. Just
Mhm.
if it's barefoot,
Yeah.
even better. But just to go for a walk and listen to the sounds, look at the clouds, notice things. I really noticed so many things that I didn't notice before, like buildings, and normally in life you're just rushing. But I'll tell you a quick story. When I was trying to get pregnant with my son, who's now 6. So we were trying to get pregnant. We had tried for a couple of years. I was not getting pregnant. At the time, I was 41. I had one ovary, and I was really like, I don't think this is going to work. Nate was really wanting a child, and so we had gone through IVF, and the IVF didn't work, and I was pretty devastated. So I went to see this holistic doctor, and I said, "Look, I don't know what to do. My OB says like I'm okay. I mean, everything seems to be okay. My eggs they're old, but and he said, okay, that was his prescription. I want you to go home and have an honest conversation with your husband about whether or not you want to have a child and to really be open and honest about what you want. And I want you to go and walk outside every day for 10 minutes, not on a treadmill, not inside, but outside. It can be raining, it can be snow, it doesn't make any difference. Outside every single day. Part of it was the vitamin D, but part of it were the negative ions coming from the trees. Part of it was the shift in perspective, not being so self consumed and instead looking bigger and broader. And to this day, I've stuck with the 10 minutes a day. By the way, I did get pregnant. I did get pregnant naturally. 2 weeks later, it was an absolute miracle. And so that's a really simple way. If you're not able to walk, if you are bedridden or you live in a place where you can't walk or it's really unstable, you could even do, Richard Simmons, the walking inside, put on a song, put on some music that you really like that motivates you and inspires you and get up and dance or get up, do a little jig or move your arms around. I like to do figure eights. I find these, I learned this in an Eden Energy, but for clearing the room and clearing energy. And it feels really good. Actually, when I do it a few times, I go, oh, the energy in my room does. It feels really good. Yeah. So, if you're a person when you're
I
through
like it.
the acute grief and you feel like, you want to be around other people, you might be a classes kind of a person. And it might mean joining a different gym or going to a senior center or finding finding a teacher who try something new even. It can be ballroom dancing or rock climbing. I did that after, David Kessler had said, do something new, do something that you didn't do
Hmm.
with your spouse when
Yeah.
you're and so rock climbing was one of those things and I loved it. So that's trying to think if there are any other things that are um
I want to go back, if I may, to the flexion and extension you were demonstrating, and just remind everyone that these things, if you're in bed or on a couch, you can do these things passively. We call it restorative yoga, but you can also call it bed yoga. Just stretching gently into those joints. For example, you can be laying in your bed and put a pillow under your sacrum or your behind and let your legs go out to the side with bent knees. So, like butterfly pose. And that can help stretch the hip flexors and open the lower belly muscles a little bit. You can also put a pillow under your shoulders and let your head go back instead of, usually if we're in bed reading or watching TV, we're in this really contracted position. So you can sometimes I put a pillow vertically from the base of my head to my lower spine and just lay open like this. Now, this is an opening, like Melisa said, you don't want to go from this to this unless you feel comfortable. It can also help you take a deep breath to open this way. So these things can be done in bed, on the couch, weeks, months before you walk outside. You may be able to go for a walk the same day your spouse or partner dies. It's all, there's nothing wrong. It's all right. It's all in your grief timing. And we talked about, I love the self massage. One more thing I want to add to that with Ayurveda, we rubbing oil into your feet is healing for so many different reasons. And you can just choose a scent you like, maybe right before bed so the oil has a chance to sink in, or put some socks over. But just some real gentle rubbing. And if you can't reach your feet for whatever physical condition, do your hands. But if you have a nice oil If you don't have a nice oil, you can use, even olive oil from the kitchen is fine. It doesn't have to be some fancy, expensive oil. Uh, so then
Or
I wanted
coconut
to
oil.
coconut oil, right? I actually buy fractionated coconut oil, which is liquid at room temperature, and I add a few drops of essential oil to it for to make whatever scent I'm looking for. Um, and the fractionated coconut oil has no coconut scent or texture, so it's just pure plain oil. And while I'm on it, I may as well just share. I use it every morning for oil pulling, so I just squirt it into my mouth and swish for a few minutes. It's supposed to be 10 or 20, but I never swish that long. Just another little tip from Ayurveda,
Good.
oil pulling, great for your mouth. Well, we're not going to get into that today, though. But I'd like to demonstrate, Melissa, if the timing's right,
Hmm.
some of the grief yoga poses. Yeah, time?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So the reason that these are so effective is that it's kind of the opposite of what Melisa was saying with the, doing this to try to, which is important. It's so important, the calming. But sometimes when we're in grief, especially with suicide loss, we are just pissed, right? Or we're feeling hurt or angry or frustrated. And it's not the kind of thing like, oh, when this happens and that might actually make you feel more like, you know. So there's some grief yoga poses I want to share, and Melisa might have some too. But a couple of my favorites are there's one where you inhale with your hands out like this, and on your exhale, keep your knees bent. On your exhale, you and it feels so good because grief yoga, movement, breath, and sound. You're getting the feelings out. You're working them out, and you can do this sitting too. So, I'm just gonna do a few. Yeah, and if your shoulders say it's okay, you can go ah.
My dog's like,
Just a
what's going
few.
on,
Oh, I know.
Lucy? She's like, Mom, are you okay? I'm okay.
When I was in the grief yoga training, I remember my dog freaking out about that. And then there's one I really love, this one called Clearing the Path. And because when we're on our grief journey, there's so many obstacles, the obstacle of guilt, the obstacle of shame, the obstacle of the supporters that you have that aren't doing what you want them to be doing, the obstacle of anger. Um, why did he do this? Why is he not here anymore? The why. So we're going to get rid of this obstacle by pull out your whatever you want to imagine. I like lightsabers because I'm a big Star Wars fan, but it could be your, maybe it's your Wolverine um, fingers, or who knows? Maybe for you, it's you're actually thinking of hacking through the jungle with a giant jungle hacker. So it's just like this. And when I do this, I take a little step forward, and I'm clearing my path. I'm releasing the shame and the guilt. And anyone in my way, anyone who's stopping my healing or belittling my grief, I don't need that. I'm gonna get rid of it. Scare my dog. So that
I
is
love that.
so good. I love
That's
that.
like the sword of discrimination. In yoga, we talk
Yep.
about the sword of discrimination, and it's hacking away all of the things that no longer serve you.
Yes,
And
exactly.
yeah, and being able to identify. And we should say that Paul Dennison is the founder of Grief Yoga,
Hmm.
and he's the one who created those
Yeah,
exercises.
he has all those exercises, and so many more are in this book. And neither one of us are teaching a grief yoga class at this time, a regular grief yoga class, but keep an eye out for a possible workshop. And you can also go to griefyoga.com and find some classes that are in session right now, or
Yeah,
do a
or check out
one-to-one
Paul
with one
Dennison
of us.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, griefyoga.com. I think that is his website. Yeah.
I think he's Spark.
Spark. Okay.
Spark. I think that's
Well,
the
look
name of
for
it.
Paul Denniston. There he is. Anyway, it's so valuable. And there's one more I want to talk about because this one for me personally was the hardest. I'm not an angry person. I have been told by mental health professionals in my life that I need to learn to express my anger. I'm the kind of person who just shuts down. I don't do anger. I mean, so I need to. We need to. This is part of the normal, healthy expression of emotions to get through grief. So this one, when I was learning this in my grief yoga training, I couldn't do it because I would get so overcome, I would just collapse. And so I started just very small, just a little pounding. You want to use a pillow, something soft. You can also do this on your knees on the floor, which is really effective. You're like, wah. And so you just, you can make, you can keep your mouth open and make ha. You can make sure you're not hurting yourself. It's really important to, keep track of your fists. You can punch, whatever pillow. You can do this on your bed. You know, without injury, it is so effective to move anger and process anger.
I'd
And
like to add that this is
go
really
ahead.
good for kids too. That's really good. If you have children that are grieving, and children they don't have the support that we as adults are able to have, and they don't know what's happening, and it comes up, and it's like they have no idea what it even comes from. Now they have these squishamals. They can use their pillows, anything, but they have these squishamals. You can get them a big squishamal, let them pound it out, or throw it at a wall, and that helps really well with kids.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, anything we can do to support movement of emotions. And remember that every emotion has a reaction in the body. Every emotional feeling you have has an embodied presence. And to support grieving and healing, moving that through the body is really important.
Getting in the car and screaming. Close the doors, roll up the windows, drive to a parking lot where they're kind of away from other cars and just scream and scream and scream and but get it out. What we don't want is for the pain, for the anger, for the guilt, any of that. We don't want to turn it back inwards, because that will make us sick, and
Yeah,
and that
we need
doesn't
to
serve
move
anybody.
through it, move through it, move it through you and move through it. Yeah. All right. So just start small. Maybe one pillow punch in the morning or one big inhale and exhale. Just one, and then two, and then three. When you're ready, um, regular movement, of course, without grief and trauma, we know the value of movement for health, that we need to keep our bodies moving. I've heard the saying, sitting is the new smoking. So we're finding that
Oh,
have you heard that the sedentary
yeah.
lifestyle is causing so many health issues. So if you can get moving, maybe you're laying in bed and you just point and flex your toes, open and close your
Totally.
hands. Start
Yeah.
with whatever you can and then just keep adding. Yeah,
Mhm.
rotating the wrists. Yeah. Yeah. So anything else, Melissa, about the movement process?
Water. Make sure to hydrate. It's easy in grief, and you go, oh my gosh, I've got to make a phone call or I have to deal with this, and to totally forget about hydrating. But hydrating is also what's going to keep flushing things out of your body. Our bodies do not function, and if we're at the point that we're already thirsty, then we're already dehydrated. So if there's some kind of, I did get like a big jug at one point, to measure, and I would just go every day I'm going to drink one of these big jugs just as a measuring tool. Or if now I realize I drink a lot more when I use a straw. So I know, who knew, but it makes a big difference. So I have the reusable straws, and um, anything that you can do that'll inspire you to drink lots of water.
To hydrate. Yeah. And for me, I don't like ice cold drinks. They bother my teeth and I don't like it in my throat. So what I found was if I drink room temperature water, I can drink all day long. I also like a straw. You can also squeeze a lemon in, or there's all kinds of flavored waters. Just try to make sure that they're not sugar, that it's not just a bunch of chemicals. And you can flavor your own water. You can throw a cucumber in there or some berries or something like that. But just, yeah, it's imperative to stay hydrated, to keep everything moving, mind, body, everything moving, emotions. Stay hydrated. Great,
And you'll start to
great.
notice it even in your skin, when and it sounds so funny. I didn't wear any makeup for a year. I remember the first time I wore mascara after Nate died and I looked I didn't even pluck my eyebrows. I mean, I was like Chewbacca, I went, oh, how come no one told me? No one told me. I guess no one was looking that close to my face either. But really, when you start to hydrate, when you do start looking in the mirror again and going, oh, okay, you'll notice that you'll start to feel more, um, energized. You'll start to feel more alive, and and giving yourself permission too to feel more alive. Because I know I felt guilty in the beginning. Anytime that I felt good, I was like, wait, I'm not supposed to feel good. Wait a second. I'm not allowed to be happy. My husband is dead. I am not, I can't, how could I smile? How could I laugh? How could I care about what I look like? Um, and so giving yourself the permission, again, it comes back to the kindness and compassion. And really, when we say, oh, part of being here on planet Earth is that it is our responsibility to take care of ourselves, because only then can we end up being of service to others. And you're, I'm not saying that that's going to happen a month or 3 months or 8 months after or a year, 2 years after your partner's died. But at some point, we really want to give ourselves permission to actually still be alive. And I think that's an important thing. I struggled with that. Still, yeah, I struggled with that for a while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're still here and they're not, and we need to keep going. We have a life to live and we're obligated to live it. And that doesn't mean it has to be miserable. We can find joy again. And we're going to talk about that and mindfulness more in the next video.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks everyone.